Hello, everyone. Nice to be here today. My name is Anna, and I will give you a talk today on what's new in international tax law and how it is affecting the video games industry. So my talk is titled "Astrologers Proclaim the Week of Taxes, Problems Doubled." Here is the agenda of my talk today, and I would like to start with a brief disclaimer that my talk is intended for a non-tax audience. So I will briefly give you a main takeaways straight away after the agenda. Then I will do introduction. Then we'll give you a brief overview what is international taxation about. Then we will shortly touch upon problems caused by digitalization and possible solutions. Then we will deliberately go on how the video games industry is affected and wrap up with final remarks and Q&A. So the main takeaways for my talk today is that, to be honest, international tax system is badly messed up, and no one has a perfect solution. With COVID-19 crisis, governments worldwide aim to tax more, and digitalized companies now are the target #1. And to be fair, the tax authorities worldwide are absolutely aware that the video games industry is booming these days while everyone is stuck at home. Business, with all now is happening in 2020 and 2021, will have lots of extra work and costs. And it affects not only finance-related and tax department, but I have to say, and it's like I couldn't be more emphasizing it. So it will be a lot of extra work for backend developers, system architects, big data specialists, and other departments as well. And as usually when it comes to some tax novelty, unfortunately, gamers will have to cover these costs and pay more because the business will have to reimburse all the additional expenses they're incurring because of the compliance and administrative tax burden. So by the way of introduction now, as I mentioned, my name is Anna, and I work as a teaching assistant and researcher. I work for Advanced Master's Program in International Tax Law, co-organized by the University of Amsterdam and IBFD in the Netherlands in Amsterdam. And I do research for the research project designing the tax system for a cashless, platform-based, and technology-driven society. Nowadays, I give lectures and do research in international tax law, but before joining academia, I was working for around 8 years as a tax specialist in various consulting, startup companies, and some multinational companies as well. So now, what is international taxation about? Well, let's say in one country, if services or goods are created and sold within one jurisdiction, the profit is taxable there only. So, I couldn't resist, so I wanted to use an example of my favorite, one of my favorite video games from my childhood. So here is the map of the Might and Magic 8 Day of Destroyer. So for the purposes of this example, let's briefly imagine that some services or goods are produced in the Daggerwound Island, and they are consumed there. All the producers are there, and all the consumers are there. So Daggerwound Island as a jurisdiction can tax all the profits created there. Then what happens if there are more than one country, so there are two or many of them? So the international tax provisions, they are used to decide how much taxes and where to pay. So for this purpose, we use the example that, let's say, the business from Daggerwound Island decided to make a store or a branch in the Raven Shore. And some goods are produced there and sold there, and some goods are customized for the demand from the Raven Shore. So we have still one company which makes sales in two different jurisdictions. So it is not always easy to decide where and how much it is need to be taxed in these jurisdictions. And what we see now with digitalization and remote sales, we see that the users can be, and the users and consumers can be located everywhere in the world, with still companies operating in only 2 jurisdictions or 1 jurisdiction maybe. So the main guiding principle on deciding how much tax and where to tax in international tax law is actually, the main principle is taxing where the value is created. So, well, we will come back to that a little later, but I also would like to pay your attention that when we see that there is different jurisdictions involved, different companies involved, we see that it happens that double taxation arises. So let's assume that one company has to pay taxes in Ravensshore, in a Daggerwood Island, and this jurisdiction has different legislation, of course. So it is always happening that one profit is taxed twice in both jurisdictions, because it is done by one company and it is made by one company or one person. So I would like to now jump a little bit on the types of taxes, but please bear in mind this picture, we will come back to it shortly. So there are usually 2 main types of tax. One is consumption tax, which is usually the value-added tax, or goods and services tax, which is carried out by consumers. So when you buy coffee or shoes, you always have a VAT in your bill, which you have to pay as a consumer. And also there is a profits tax, which usually corporates and individuals carry. So when you receive a salary or when you receive a profit as a company, you have to pay a profits tax. And for the purpose of our exercise, we will make the consumption taxes, we will make them look like a triangle, and for profits tax, they will look like a square. So nowadays, and for recent decades, the international tax law system, it was working relatively well, and double taxation was somehow avoided. So triangles was matching with triangles, squares was matching with squares, and we kind of managed to live in the system with avoiding double taxation and double non-taxation as much as possible. What now happening with the digitalization of economy worldwide? As we remember, the key principle is taxing where the value is created. And the question which has been posed by international tax community is where the value is actually created, who creates this value, and is value created outside of the company by users and by consumers. So it is given as a fact now that digitalized companies carve data from users, monetize this data, and sell services remotely. And it is also considered as a given that users create a lot of value for the company. So what is wrong now with international tax law system, that the value created by the users remain untaxed at the users or customers' jurisdiction. So well, remember when I told you to bear in mind the picture? So we see that in Ravensshore and Daggerwood Island, the company's profit is taxed, but although we think that users in other jurisdictions create a value for this company, this value is not taxed in the user jurisdictions. So what are the possible solutions which international tax community came up with? The first one is that countries solely come up with the measures to additionally tax the digitalized companies. They implementing so-called digital services tax, which is usually a percentage of all the sales made in the country. These taxes now have been implemented by the UK, Austria, Turkey, Spain, and in Poland as well. And the countries which have not yet implemented this digital services tax, they are discussing it, and literally every country now is considering should they implement it or not. So what are the problems with these digital services taxes? First of all, that they are all very different. So the jurisdictions come up individually with these taxes, and they are all very peculiar for every country where they are implemented. And it is always interesting that they somehow caused the double taxation. So do you remember these triangles and squares I used to show? So the digital services tax, they kind of have a features of both profits tax and consumption tax. So usually they don't fit in any of those systems, and they cause double taxation, and sometimes they cause even triple taxation of the business profits of the companies. And the other problem with digital services tax is that they are discriminatory for digital businesses. So let's say these taxes are usually only carried by some digitalized companies, and that means that they pay more taxes than stores, local manufacturers, or some old-fashioned service producers. So it is considered discriminatory and contrary to the guiding principles of international tax law. The other possible solution is so-called unified approach under the Pillar 1 proposal. It is a new tax which 137 jurisdictions are currently discussing, and they think about implementing it. So this tax, or new additional tax, supposedly or allegedly fits the system. But as usual, there are many minuses in every possible solution. So this tax is going to be, if implemented, it's going to be extremely complex. So it means that the businesses will have to do a reporting on literally every advertisement played and every payment made and every user located. So if the video games company selling the services in 100 jurisdictions, then it's going to be an additional reporting for users in every user in every jurisdiction. What is also interesting that for this unified approach to be implemented, that consensus of many countries on this very soft and very tender spot has to be made. So the countries need to decide how much tax which each country will collect, and this is of course very difficult to agree upon, especially when it comes to 137 sovereign jurisdictions. Now, the most important point of my talk is how the video games industry is affected. So, surprise, surprise, the video games industry is a textbook example of digitalized industry. Productions and sales are made worldwide, and they are made remotely. And users' data is very important for making a value in this industry. And as I mentioned, the tax authorities are completely aware that during the COVID-19 crisis times, the industry is blooming. So most solutions, on the bright side, most solutions which are now in the international tax community come up with, they only will affect either huge companies working worldwide, or if this is the unilateral measures like digital services tax, they can affect, usually they affect medium businesses as well. But of course, it depends on every single jurisdiction, how they design it. So it may affect also smaller companies, but hopefully not. As I said, that any of these tax that increases the complexity of tax reporting, which usually carried out not only by one tax manager, by one tax consultant sitting somewhere in the accounting department, but it also requires lots of work from backend developers, big data specialists, system architects, and also finance, accounting, legal, litigation specialists, and many others. So my final remarks are, is that there is no perfect solution, and optimistic scenario is that we will have a second best solution somewhere mid in 2021. So if the unified approach and Pillar 1 proposal are implemented, it's going to be a lot of work. But if it's not going to be implemented, it's going to be even more work for the businesses providing digitalized services. Businesses will have lots of extra compliance work and lots of extra compliance costs. As usual, gamers will have to cover this costs. and will have to pay more for the games they are buying. So we will, as consumers, will have to carry this tax burden on ourselves. With this, I would like to wrap up my talk, and I would like to thank you all for your attention. And I would like also to acknowledge the organizers of the conference for this great opportunity. And I also would like to say that the tax fellows, which gave a talk today at 4 p.m., Violeta and Michal, that also did a very great talk. So if you have an opportunity to listen to them in the recording, please do so. It was a very interesting presentation, and it's always nice to see that it is always available. It is sometimes available to have the things you like to be wrapped up in one project. So it is very nice, and thank you so much. If you have any questions, ideas, or comments, please feel free to reach me out via email, via LinkedIn, via Meet to Match opportunity provided with the conference. And let's see if we have any questions for the session. I don't see questions now. Maybe there are some. I see that maybe I will have a look now to the questions. Yeah, that's great. And I assume everything is clear. I also see the comment that people like a structure with main takeaways straight away, but I was very much anxious that I really wanted people to to have this information, but I mean, that's not non-tax audience, so well, we'll see. Well, anyways, we can wrap up earlier, and if anyone is interested, or if anyone has any suggestions how to fix the international tax law system and how to address the issues I've told, you're always more than welcome to reach me to see if there is anything you can offer.